Welcome to Behind the Black Belt, a podcast about the people and black belts of BJJ.
Welcome to Behind the Black Belt. I'm your host, Rich, and my guest today is BJJ Black Belt, Geordie Lavers-Mcbain. Now, Geordie is a second degree BJJ Black Belt who is also the full-time instructor and founder of Black Dragon Kai Combat Systems, which has clubs located all across Queensland. He has an absolutely incredible martial arts background with more black belts in various martial arts than you could possibly count, to be quite honest with you. He received an Australia Day Award for his contribution in sport in 2002. And he was also inducted into the Australian Martial Arts Hall of Fame in 2008. He is an active member of the Southeast Queensland community and one of the only civilian instructors to the Australian Defence Force in the kinetic fighting systems. Geordie Lavers-Mcbain, mate, welcome to Behind the Black Belt, and thank you so much for being on the show.
Thanks, Richard. Awesome being here.
All right. So, Geordie, look, black belts in BJJ, karate, shoot wrestling. You've got sporting qualifications, boxing qualifications, wrestling. The list is quite overwhelming. It's quite amazing, and we've got quite a bit to get through during this episode. So why don't you get us started off, Geordie? Why don't you tell us, where were you born and where were you raised?
Sure. I was born in Brisbane in 1977.
Okay.
And so I lived around there for up until I was about 8. Then I moved out to Charleville and lived out there for about 4 years.
Yep.
And then from there I moved to Beaudesert around about when I was 12, and I've lived in Beaudesert ever since.
Yep.
And it was interesting growing up, like going from a city to the outback.
Yeah.
Finishing in a country town.
So Brisbane to where did you say? Chartersville?
Charleville. It's like
Charleville.
1,000 kilometres west of Brisbane.
Right. And what took you out to Charterville?
Charleville.
Charleville. I keep saying it wrong. Charleville.
Yeah, that's right.
Excuse me.
That's right. My father was a teacher,
Okay.
and he got a promotion, and so he got transferred out there. And so being a young kid, I had no choice. So
Yeah.
in school, get new friends.
Yeah. And do you remember the sort of the difference in kind of schooling you went from a Brisbane city school to Charleville? And I assume you went to the school that your dad taught at?
Well, no, he was a high school teacher, so I
Okay.
went to the primary school.
Yeah.
It was grade 1 and grade 2 it was actually a private school.
Yep.
And then, went to a state school when I got to Charleville, and it was, it was different. It was probably a little bit more violent than
Okay.
it was, but it wasn't too bad. I mean, I work 1 day a week at a school where I teach a mastery program, and they had their first physical fight in like over a decade the other day.
Yeah, right.
And, the teachers didn't know what to do, let alone the students. All these kids were having breakdowns because they witnessed violence, and all sorts of weird stuff was happening. And
Yeah.
it was very surreal from my point of view, because I was in the staff room eating a sandwich, and they said, I think something's happening outside, and nothing's ever happened. So I'm like, well, I'll finish my sandwich and I'll go out and stop the kids yelling at each other. And it turned out to be a proper fight. And,
Yeah, right.
I was a bit late to it, so I was very disappointed.
And not the upbringing that you had at your primary school in Charleville.
Definitely not.
Okay. And then you went from there. So how long did you spend there? Sorry?
4 years.
4 years. So that brings you to around sort of 12 years old. So entering your
Yes.
teens, and then you moved to Beaudesert. And tell us about Beaudesert.
Yeah, Beaudesert was good. Again, a little bit of a rough country town, but a nice town. I definitely, like, I still live here. I still love the town. It's obviously had different changes throughout time, but I think I really appreciate growing up in a small country town.
Yeah.
Even when I was in Charleville, I used to ride my push bike over to see friends, even when I was like 8 years old. And when I moved here, it's the same thing. You just had a lot of freedom as long as you're home before it got dark. It didn't really matter. And, so it was quite nice. I used to go fishing down the creek and going out bush with friends. And so I kind of really liked that upbringing.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, there's a real resemblance of independence that comes with growing up in that kind of safe, smaller community. I reflect that I had the same. My home time was on dark. Be back before it's dark was the kind of thing on my push bike.
100%. Before the street lights came on was mine.
That's it. Yeah. Awesome. And so you mentioned your dad was a high school teacher. Was mum in the picture as well?
Yep. So yeah, mum was a nurse.
Okay.
So dad became the subject master or the head of department for science in Charleville for the high school, and mum was a nurse. So she worked originally in the hospitals and then got into blue nursing, looking after sort of elderly people and people in need.
Yeah.
And so yeah, dad was a teacher, mum was a nurse.
Yeah.
Pretty good.
And then was it their career that brought you guys back to Beaudesert or to Beaudesert?
Yeah, so well, I know definitely my mum wanted to move back,
Okay.
close to her family, and I think it's really hard to stay out west as a teacher for a very long time. Because he stayed out there longer than most, he got a bit more of a choice of where he could go, and my dad had a bit of family in Beaudesert as well, so we ended up moving here.
Yeah. Okay. And any siblings at all?
No, just
No?
only child.
Just only child. Are you the classic stereotype of the sort of spoilt only child that gets what he wanted when he was growing up?
I don't think from my point of view, but
and neither did I. My wife throws that at me all the time.
Yeah, so I'm not sure. Maybe it would have been different.
Yeah.
Like I guess, yeah, maybe I don't like sharing as much as probably other kids. But that's okay.
Okay. So you're on your teens. You're in Beaudesert. When any sports that you played as a child?
Like I've always done martial arts since I was since just before I left to Charleville actually.
Okay.
But yeah, I played cricket. I played soccer.
Yeah.
I never really played rugby or football.
Yeah.
It's just not something interests me. And by the time, Beaudesert's a really big football town. We've had people try to become mayors based on just the fact they played for the Broncos.
Yeah, right.
That's their entire standing platform. That's their ads. Former Broncos player.
Right.
Doesn't tell you what they're going to do. So it's a big football town, and I had a lot of run-ins as I was growing up with football players. So by that stage, I didn't want to have anything to do with that. Yeah. So
talk to us about your beginning of martial arts, your sort of childhood martial arts. What type of martial arts was that?
Sure. So I did Kung Fu first.
Okay.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that. It was looking back on it, it was a very sort of street fighting style of Kung Fu. I didn't know at the time. I just assumed that's what all Kung Fu was like. But I've done a lot of different styles since then. And yeah, there is a difference. But yeah, we were doing a lot of very, I guess, almost violent things in it. I think I was 9 or 10 when I broke a guy's ankle for pushing me off the top of a slippery slide.
Yeah.
So I was standing at the top of the slippery slide ready to go, and he just pushed me, and I fell face first from the very top of it to the bottom.
Yeah.
And my face was all bloody, and then he slid down the slide, and then I side kicked him in his ankle joint and broke his ankle as he put his foot down. And that was actually a technique we were taught in class.
Yeah,
so
right.
I actually did it, and I did it on purpose, and I meant to do it. So
yep.
I got in a lot of trouble for that. But he did push me from the top of the slippery slide. But so that was my kind of first martial art, and then I did Taekwondo.
Okay.
And yeah, I did that because I could break boards and stuff. And the Kung Fu style I did. Eventually, you got to breaking stuff, but it wasn't as early as the Taekwondo. In fact, we had to do this thing where we'd have a book that was wrapped in a towel, sitting on top of a rock, sitting on top of a stool, sitting on top of a rock. And you had to hit it for 15 minutes a day. And then every week you got to take a layer of the towel off, and you just kept hitting it, and then you take another layer off till you get to the book. And then when the book falls apart, you're on top of a wooden stool. When the wooden stool breaks, then you hit the rock. When the rock breaks, you finished your course in chopping. And so I did that, and I got.
No, wait. So you got through all those layers?
No, I didn't get to the end.
Oh
I got to the stool. I wrecked the book that I was on, and I got to the stool. I never broke the stool.
How long did it take you to get to the stool? Do you remember?
I think it was months. and I think I just stopped because I figured I'd never break it. When you're young, all your friends are going out and doing other stuff. So I just.
And you were, imagine, I mean, I would love to be a fly on the wall and to see your parents looking out to a young Geordie just chopping away at this towel and book, and oh my goodness. And that's at a young age. And what was, I mean, the purpose of something like that? Is that to build the physical?
Hard on your hands and get your, in fact, like my hand to this day is still really hard.
Wow.
Right here. And I'm sure that developed it, whether it was through some sort of Wolf's adaptation style.
Yeah. Okay.
Thing, but yeah, it's something.
That's really cool. And then you transitioned. You said it's a cool story. And you transitioned. You said to Taekwondo. Now, it seems quite a very different martial arts from Kung Fu. A lot more sport oriented.
It wasn't so sport orientated back then. We used to be allowed to leg kick. We used to be able to do different stuff. It was just a lot of kicking.
Yeah, right.
And I had a bit of a instructor who really believed in being able to fight properly, and so we did almost boxing punches within it. And but they used to do breaks. They used to break boards and stuff, and I was really interested in that. I just wanted to test myself. And
and do you remember like the most impressive thing that you had to break through?
I've broken in Taekwondo we only did boards, but I've broken bricks and stuff.
Yeah.
But I mean, what did I think it was either Bruce Lee or Bolo Young? It might have been Bolo Young in Bloodsport.
Said, The brick don't hit back.
That's right.
Classic.
Yeah. Which Bruce Lee said to one of the guys at the end of the Dragon when Bolo Young was there. Good, the board doesn't hit back. So and that's really true. Like there's a I think Gary Larson, Far Side comic, where an alien spaceship lands and all of these aliens made of bricks and wood start walking out. Finally, the day for the karate club to save the town.
That's awesome. That is super cool.
Yeah, but it's just that the idea of testing. So the idea of like, say, in karate when you punch, the idea is you punch the makiwara, say 10,000 times, and then to see where you're up to, you get a board and you see if you can snap the board. Mm-hmm. It's not just punch a board. It's about knowing which part of your hand to punch with, making sure you can extend through, and but it's not so much about the board. That's just like a little check on the way.
Yeah, sure.
Oh, I'm up to here now. Okay, I'm going to keep working. When I feel stronger, maybe I'll try something a bit harder.
Yeah. Okay. No, I've never broken a board per se. Maybe I'm missing out. I remember seeing it a lot as a kid on movies and thinking, I'm going to do that. And I was one of those videos you see on Facebook, those idiot fail ones where kids try to break something that clearly is not going to break from a kid's punch. That I've tried that many times. So I think
I've broken myself many times. Building houses in the area, we went and got tiles and boards and stuff, and some tiles are reinforced and you can't break those. I broke a pair of nunchucks on one once because I smashed my hand and knew it didn't work, so I got nunchucks, broke the nunchucks. But it's one of those things that's just fun.
Yeah, for sure.
There is some confidence in knowing, like, if you can snap, 3 inches of pine and then you want to throw a punch at someone's chin, you've got some confidence that your hand won't break and it's more likely their chin will.
Yeah.
But there's a lot that goes in between the start of that action and the end of that action.
Yeah.
To be there. But I don't get my students to break stuff.
Okay.
We have one option at a different, at a stage through their training. If they want to try, they can. There's a lot of preparation for that. And we usually just try and get them to do a palm hill, but it's just something to let them realize that, like
they have that power.
Like that, there's power in what you do. You're not made of glass. Your hand's not made of glass. If you do have to hit someone, you can do it, and your body can survive.
Yeah, that's cool. All right, so you're in Bow Desert. Talk us through. You're in Taekwondo now. Talk us through your sort of high school years. How are those for Geordie?
So in Bow Desert, I started Zendokai in Bow Desert as well. So I started as soon as I got here. I pretty much started doing that, and then I was also found another Taekwondo club and was training with them. And there was also another karate club in town that I used to drop into and train with those guys. Now, in those days too, no one liked you training anywhere else.
Yeah, so you're training. So Zendokai is a type of karate. Yeah,
it's like a freestyle karate.
And so there's two different types of karate club.
Yeah, if you do karate, it's not karate.
Yeah, right. Got it. So so you had 3 different types of martial arts, if you will, and you were doing all 3 simultaneously at a time where that was frowned upon.
Yeah, Yeah, and in fact, I had to leave my Taekwondo club. Like I was always open that I'd done other things. It was very clear that I'd done other things.
Yeah.
My instructor actually said, he goes, my Taekwondo instructor said, well, I hear you're still training. I said, yeah, I am. He goes, well, you have to choose. And this was like 1 week before I was doing my black belt in Zendo Kai.
Yeah, right.
Well, I know where I'm choosing.
Yeah.
Um,
And talk to me about that as a sort of, I can understand that it would be super beneficial from a physical perspective. You know, you're doing this whole bunch of physical training, but mentally, how do you retain 3 different types of martial arts simultaneously?
I find, because I've done a lot of styles, there's more in similar, like you've basically got things that work across the whole spectrum. So when I spar, as long as I stick within the rules, it's fine.
Okay.
So if I'm sparring boxing and I throw a punch and it's a karate punch and it lands, it's a good boxing punch. And the same thing, if I'm allowed to do leg kicks and I throw a Thai boxing leg kick, then that's fine. Because I actually started Thai boxing in the Zendo Kai Club at the same time too. So I guess I was doing 4 styles. But you go to the karate class, they throw a front kick, and it's a front kick. So you do a front kick. If they teach you a different way, well, now you have 2 front kicks. And then you do Thai boxing, they teach you a push kick, so now I have 3 front kicks. And I just kept adding to the sort of the technique catalog. And going, okay, well, when does this work? When doesn't it work? Because to me, martial arts should just work. And if they work, styles don't really matter. Yeah. But of course, that's not how it was. That's just my innocence as a child, wanting to learn everything I can and put it all together. I think I wrote down a list of all the different katas and patterns and forms I knew, and it was over 100 at one stage. Yeah. But I mean, there's kids in China that know 300 and they're not even out of high school. So, it's definitely possible to learn stuff. You've just got to want to do it, and you just got to find your own method and system. So most martial arts are the same, and then you have uniquenesses. And the uniquenesses are one of 2 things. Ingeniousness, where this style does this, or this person taught you this, and it works really effectively, and no one's thought of it in the other things. Or it's just garbage. It's just made up. Yeah. And most of the time, it's made up. So most of the times, it just doesn't work. And I talk to people all the time about the broken clock idea. The broken clock's right twice a day. Yeah. So just because it worked once doesn't mean it's real. Just because some guy pulls off a beer and bolo in a UFC fight doesn't mean you should do that. Yeah. It doesn't mean you should do that in MMA fights, because it's only worked once that day. It didn't work twice. Broken clocks work twice. And we've always got to remember that everything works some of the time, but nothing works all the time. So we have to remember our high percentage moves aren't always high percentage. When you think 90%, a high percentage move might be 20%. If I know I can hit you flush on the chin every time I throw a right cross, I'll just throw 5 right crosses. Yeah. I know one of them is going to land flush, and I know what's probably going to happen when I land it flush. So it's hard. I just got to make sure you don't hit me with your 1 in 5 while I'm trying to hit you with that. Yeah. Could you imagine doing jiu-jitsu and knowing that, say, if you had 80% of all your arm bars you attempted finished people, you would be the best fighter in the world. You'd be the best grappler in the world. If you can armbar 20% of people, make people, if you go for an armbar and 1 in 5 people you go for an armbar on have to tap from that one armbar, you will try to armbar everyone, because that's high percentage. And then if you have something like a triangle choke or a omoplata or something that comes off your armbar, and that's also high percentage, now you're really increasing your chances of success. And then if you have that comes off that or whatever else, and that's how you put your game plan together.
I mean, and you're describing when you're in the context of doing these 4 different types of martial arts, you seem like a real pragmatist. You know what I mean? You're attending these classes, and if it works, I'm adding it to the repertoire and just adding more and more and more layers to it. But to be in that position, in your high school years, has to have taken a drive. Where did this drive and passion come from? What made you want to do so much martial arts when you were a teenager?
I guess I'd watched every martial arts VHS tape that was in the video shop. Yeah. I've just been, like my daughter's obsessed with animals. Like she was telling me the difference between a native Australian gecko and an Indonesian gecko the other day. and she's 7 years old, and I've got no idea. I'm there going, I don't even understand. Like, it's talking about number of legs. This one has spots, and that one has spines. And then, we went to the Queensland Museum, and she looked at crabs on the wall and named 20 species when she was like 5.
Yeah. So it's just a passion that she has.
It's just a passion she has. And my passion was martial arts.
Right.
It's not jiu-jitsu, it's not karate, it's not Japanese arts, or Brazilian arts, or Eastern martial arts. I love Western boxing. I love freestyle wrestling. I love fencing. I love Western martial arts too, because to me, one of my goals was to try and get a high degree of instructorship in a martial art from every continent on earth.
Wow.
And because then we've got that bigger understanding of what's happening. Because really, there shouldn't be 1,000 styles. It should really be stuff. Does this work? What context does this work? All right, let's understand that. And just because something doesn't work now doesn't mean we want to throw it out. So, for example, Japanese jiu-jitsu has Yoroi Gumi, which is grappling in armor. Yoroi's armor.
Yes.
So if I'm grappling in armor, that's going to be different to grappling in a uniform, which is going to be different to grappling no-gi. So it'd be easy to say, well, that's irrelevant. Let's forget that.
Yeah, because it's only for Japanese people in armor, right?
That's right. And then what are we doing now with the ADF? We're now grappling in armor.
In armor. There you go.
And so it comes around. Why do I switch my hips to Kazuri Kasagatami when I'm holding someone on the ground? Oh, to draw my knife. Then I come back on and I put my knife into their chest. That's how I switch back to side control. Yeah. So why did these things previously exist? To limit your access to my weapons and to increase my access to my weapons. Yeah. So if I can understand that context and then, maybe not practice it in the way, is currently relevant, but not forget it either. Yeah. So Bruce Lee said, use what's useful, discard what's useless. Well, we've got to be careful what we discard, because we discard knowledge. And if we discard too much knowledge, we can't go back. If we forget how to do trench warfare or bayonet fighting, and then we suddenly go back to bayonet fighting and trench warfare, and there's no collective knowledge of this, we're in danger of repeating the same mistakes we did 100 years ago, or 60 years ago, whenever it was, 80 years ago. So when we train, we just need to keep context into why we're training. Yeah. And when we discard something, we have to put the context of why we discard it. And that's just as important. So why don't we teach soldiers footlocks? Because you could shoot or stab me or pick up a rock and hit me in the head with it. So do I teach people who want self-defense footlocks? No, I don't. Because you could pick up a rock, you could have a knife on you. I'm so far away from you, I can't control your hands. So do I teach my MMA fighters footlocks and leg locks? Not really, but sometimes. You need to be aware of it so people can't beat you. Do I teach my sport jiu-jitsu guys leg locks? Yeah, definitely. Do I do them? 100% I do them, because I enjoy them. It's interesting. And there is that aspect of training which is, well, this is interesting. The problem we have is we lose context. Yeah. So what happens is we think that we're doing self-defense techniques when we're doing, straight ankle locks. And we're doing them, say IBJJF real straight ankle locks. So we're missing out that other half of it, of where, I could roll the other way, I could put my leg across or whatever else. And in the reality is it's not self-defense. Could it work in self-defense? Yes. Has there been instances? Yes. So we can't say it's not self-defense, but we can also say it's not focused on self-defense. Yeah. Focused on a limited set of rules. Yeah. And when we focus on limited sets of rules, they're really good because they're like isolation training. So I love jiu-jitsu comps because they isolate, they force me to react under a certain set of rules. But I also love wrestling because they change those rules and I have to do that. I love judo because it's changed again. I love Thai boxing. I like MMA because I have to put them all together. Anything which is full contact, full resistance, I'm all for. There's, I don't care what it is. You could say left hand tied behind your back, boxing. Is it full contact yet? All right, I'm in. Because sometimes you're not going to have your other hand. How are we going to react to that? Yeah.
It's a really great perspective, this training within a context. And, as you've just described very eloquently, that no one can define the context, because the context of fighting could be literally anything. Could be war, could be walking down the street, could be anywhere. So, discount something at your own peril because you just never know what the context could be. That's a really fascinating approach to it all.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about, you in high school. So this is you, an excellent student by the sounds of it from a martial arts perspective. But what about academically through high school? Did this transcend into your book works as well?
I did well, most likely up until year 12.
Okay.
And then year 12, I didn't want to be at school anymore.
Yeah. Okay.
So year 12, I was over being at school. I stopped wearing my school uniform.
Yeah.
And my dad was a teacher at the school at this stage too. So
Yeah. Right. So this isn't going to go down well.
he was pretty good. Like I didn't break school rules per se.
Yeah.
I knew where the limit was, and I would push the limit because I didn't want to be there. And so anyway, so I finally got through year 12. I agreed with my parents I'd finish year 12.
Yep.
And they were just happy that I got to the end, got the senior certificate.
Yeah. Great.
I didn't get a school reference, but I got a senior certificate.
Yeah.
So.
And then what was the plan? Sorry.
So after that, I go, right, I'm going to get a job.
Okay.
I was probably interested in cars. So I looked at becoming a mechanic, but I just looked at any job so I could just keep training martial arts. All I wanted to do was train.
Okay.
And I wanted to do that. And everyone back then said you can't be a martial arts instructor full time. That's not something that's happened. You're too young, you're too low ranked in everything you do. No one does that. My instructors
just
didn't
context, what year is this again?
So this is like 90, like I started teaching in 93. So when I was in year 12, I opened up my first club.
Okay.
I started doing shoot wrestling and doing other stuff as well in 93. So I added a few other things to what I was doing.
Yeah. And then you finished high school. It's 93. You're looking for a
94,
job.
I finished. So 94? I actually started. So I started teaching grade 11, 94. Okay. By the time I was at the end of grade 12, I had 5 dojos I was running.
What?
So I had 5 locations. Yeah.
How?
Just like Monday, Wednesday, I was at one place, and then I'd finish there and drive to another. And then Tuesday, Thursday, I was at another place and drive there. And I actually had a student who already came to me as a brown belt. He'd earned his black belt underneath the system that I was with. And then he opened up the club as my student. And so we had 5 clubs.
Wow.
And in the second one, we'd always teach Thai boxing after we taught the martial arts. So I was probably teaching 12 or something like that classes a week anyway.
And people are telling you can't be a full-time martial arts instructor, but are you making any money from these 5 schools in 1995?
I was kind of in a structure with the system I was in that was like all the percentages of all the gross went up to all the people who were my instructors. It was well sorted out for them.
Yeah, sure.
And I was loyal, and so that's just what it was.
Yeah, but at the same time, you can't put a value on what you are gaining as a person. Enterprise, building, teaching, managing, time management, all that sorts of stuff. For a year 12, year 11 student, Jesus, that sounds incredible. Yeah,
it was really awesome. I wouldn't have swapped anything I did. And I mean, I went out in the workforce for a year and then realized, this sucks. Yep. I really need to do something better than this. Yep. So I went, okay, what would be a good job? I'd like to be a PE teacher.
Okay.
I like teaching people. I like fitness.
Physicality, makes sense.
It didn't seem like it'd be a lot of homework to mark. Seemed like a pretty good.
Yeah.
Lots of holidays, not much homework. I thought about it like that.
Yeah.
So I went, I want to do that. But because I didn't really I did some TAFE courses while I was, I did like the fitness leadership course and all that sort of stuff through TAFE. But I didn't have enough to get into uni. So I went back to high school and I repeated year 12.
Okay.
By that stage I had a mobile phone that was like a brick.
Yep.
Because I needed it to answer calls for business, and I used to turn it on at lunchtime, listen to it. And it seems like that was a long time. On the lunchtime of the Wednesday, so I was there Monday, Tuesday, and then Wednesday I got a phone call from my mother who said that in the mail came acceptance into Griffith Uni. So then I got into uni on what they used to call Form B. So you could go in with your OP.
Yeah.
Used to have. Yep. Or you could like your TE score or whatever, and then you could also just say why you thought you should go to uni. And so I wrote a letter about why I thought I should go.
Got accepted.
Got accepted, and then I did a double degree of exercise science and education. I did that for 2 years.
Yep.
And then realized that I could become a full-time martial arts instructor, and that doing bisecting people's legs as they're exercising to try and work out, how much ATP they're using and stuff like that. It's really not going to make me a PE teacher.
Yeah.
So I just went, well, these degrees I'm stuck in ended up looking like a 5-year double degree, which is just way too long to be at uni for not getting anything above a degree.
Yeah, sure.
I just went, I'm going to try and become a full-time martial arts instructor, and that's when I changed to that. And,
Yeah, okay.
But since then, I've done like a diploma and an advanced diploma in sports coaching and sport
Yeah.
direct for martial arts. I just finished a graduate diploma in strategic leadership. So, maybe continue on.
It's a brave decision, I have to admit, because we're similar in age and similar in time, and the generation of our parents were the generation where you must have higher education. How could you possibly be in the workforce without higher education? I had that push. My wife had that push, higher education, and then you get your higher education. You're like, oh wow, you didn't really need that. There's a whole bunch of other things that other people are doing. Just for one, getting a trade or something else. So it's a pretty brave decision to make, especially after you had to do your Form B application and got accepted to that. Talk us through some of the next steps. So you made this decision. I'm going to be a full-time martial arts instructor. How do you go from there?
So I just really focused on how I could run more classes, run more specialized classes. So back then, if you were 6 years old and you were 60 years old, you're in the same class. So you all turned up at the 6 o'clock class and you trained from 6 to 7. In my era, actually, we trained from 6 to 8:30.
Yeah.
So it was like 2.5 hours,
Wow.
no drink breaks, none of that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
I trained under some crazy instructors. I used to train under a guy who used to, in winter, open all the windows and turn the fans on, and then in the summer, shut all the windows and the heaters on.
Yeah.
And making you mentally tough and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
I passed out I don't know how many times training, but you never complained, and you just got
paid
up
for it. You
kept
paid
going.
for it.
Yeah. It's like, we're all paying for this. And no one's complaining. And we had a close group of friends. We used to go to the park downtown. We all spar, so we get all the different people from all the different martial arts groups around. And, I had friends who were training in Brisbane and stuff from school. And we'd just hang out in the park on a Saturday, and there'd be like probably 30 of us all sparring each other and doing stuff for a couple of hours, and all from different instructors, and our instructors never approved.
Yeah.
But we're all doing it. Even when I became an instructor, I was still doing it. And, I was inviting my students to come along because, I think it's good to experience other people's skills.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And so tell me, when does BJJ enter the story for you?
Sure. So I was doing shoot wrestling, which was like a submission style art.
Mm-hmm.
And I did that from 93 to about 2003.
Okay.
And I got my black belt in that. Was pretty good. And every time I went to a jiu-jitsu seminar or whatever else, I just thought, there's nothing for me here. I know how to do an armbar. I know how to sweep someone off, if I'm on my back and get on top of them. And we used to do all the cranks and all face bars, and we were allowed to grab fingers and do all sorts of stuff. It was a pretty full-on thing. How we survived it, I'm not sure, but it was. But we all had control within our group. Everything was pretty much legal. It was like literally no holds barred, but just grappling only.
Sure.
And then I when I was at Griffith Uni, I met Vincent Perry, and he was one of the first black belts in Queensland.
Okay.
He was a blue belt at the time. And we used to laugh because I was teaching shoot wrestling and he was teaching BJJ, and I could advertise I was a black belt, and he had to advertise he was a blue belt.
Yeah.
And he used to say, it's not really fair because people ring you up, what belt are you? Oh, I'm blue belt. Oh, there's a black belt up there, right? He's not.
Yeah, sure. But they don't get the context of that.
They don't get it. But we have a really good relationship, really good friendship, which we formed back in kind of those mid-90s when I started doing some classes with him and just trying to learn more. And I really liked it, but he was in Currumbin.
Yeah.
And I guess at the time, him only being a blue belt, I didn't see that there was any progress or future for me because I had no idea when he was going to grade. And I was actually there the day he got his purple belt.
Okay.
From John Will.
Yeah.
I was teaching at a friend of mine's kung fu school that I was actually training kung fu with, and he was also a John Wall guy. And by that stage, I was already training with Daniel Lima in Fight Club Jiu-Jitsu. And I started with Daniel. We went to the International College of Martial Arts on the Gold Coast from by a guy called Damien Martin. He's also a really good friend of mine. And in it, Daniel was here on an international student visa. And so we're doing this. And he, at the time, had no money. So the only money he was making from teaching. And we became good friends. And we used to wrestle each other all the time, but I wasn't training under him.
Yeah.
One day, I just heard through a couple of other students that, he was selling some stuff. And I said, "Oh, what are you selling?" He goes, "Oh, I'm selling my couch." I said, "Oh, okay. You getting a new one?" He goes, "No, I just can't afford my rent. So I have to sell my couch so I can help make up my rent."
Huh.
So I went, "How about you come out to my school and do a seminar?
Yeah.
How much rent money do you need? I'll pay you that."
Yeah.
So I got him to come out and we did the seminar. And like I've trained with him heaps. And I knew he was a good grappler.
Yeah.
Because, we're trained together. But there's lots of good grapplers.
Yeah.
But then he taught with such detail and such precision, and said things that I'd never thought about. I went, "Oh, I can really learn from you." And so anyway, another month goes by. He's short on money again. He says, "Oh, can I do a seminar?" I said, yeah, come out. And he impressed me again. And then after that, I just said to him, "How about I affiliate my club with yours? And if we do that, how will that all work?" And so he goes, "Well, technically in jiu-jitsu, you're a white belt, so I'll have to do like a blue belt test with you. So I'll just ask you to do some stuff. You show me you can do it, because we wrestle each other. I know you can roll at that level, but I just got to make sure you know jiu-jitsu."
Yeah.
So it's not just random wrestling moves. You actually know jiu-jitsu. So funnily enough, I said, "Okay," and we did that, and I failed. He asked me to do stuff, mental blanks. I couldn't do it. I'm just like, I'm sure I know how to do this. So a month later, I said, I think I can do that stuff now. We did that, and he asked me heaps more, and I got it all right. I just had a big mental blank on that day.
Yeah.
And so I got my blue belt, like technically with only 1 month of serious jiu-jitsu training, but I've been wrestling all that time before.
Well, but I love that story, man. I love the integrity behind that story. You know what I mean? Because it could have just easily just been, no, I know you're good. Don't worry about it. But I love how you failed the first time. That's great.
I love telling my students that too. It's like, failing's nothing. Failing just means you're not there yet. Like, what's the worst thing that happens to you if you fail? You just do it again.
Yeah.
Like that's the worst thing that happens if you fail. So, but if you don't try, you're guaranteed to fail.
Yeah.
Any chance you have of success is attempting. So, I think it's good to step up. I think it's good to actually do it. And if you don't get through, all right, I'm going to do it again. I'm going to do it better. And obviously we want to do our best, but if waiting to be our best holds us back, that's bad.
Yeah.
We just need to make sure that the system which we test under has integrity.
Yeah, exactly.
Because if we're going to pass no matter what, there's no integrity in that. And in the different styles of martial arts I teach, I fail people all the time. And I don't lose students because I fail them. In fact, it's a retention tool, because then they work on their stuff harder than they did before.
Yeah.
And everybody who passes knows that they're worthy because they got through.
Yeah.
And that's really important, because if everyone, just gets a participation ribbon, really, what does it mean?
Yeah.
And the standard that you set is by your weakest student, not your strongest. So if I say this is what a blue belt is, and I give it to, Fred, who just turns up 10 minutes early and says hello to everyone, he's a great guy, mops the mats after class, and he's just a legend, but his jiu-jitsu sucks, and I give him a blue belt, that's my standard.
Yeah.
And he's got to live with that. That's the meanest thing you could ever do to someone, is give them a rank that they can't defend. Because people visit your club and students in your club are like, well, I want to be a blue belt. I'm going to wrestle that blue belt really hard. Or he thinks he's my rank, I'm going to wrestle him. There's no hiding. You put that belt on, it weighs something. It is a weight that you put on, and that weight makes you stronger. So if you're not worthy of your blue belt when you wear it, you will get stronger by wearing it every class, because people will make you stronger because of it. So, we used to talk about the Western philosophy is you only get things you've earned, and the Eastern philosophy was we will give you it to make you worthy of it. And I'm a little bit of a belief in both,
Mm-hmm.
but I also understand my weakest rank that I've ever given someone is my standard, and I
Yeah.
can't take that standard back. Um,
How do you deal with the tension, with the amount of traditional martial arts in your background, some of the controversy that potentially some of the martial arts that you have been affiliated with, but potentially had that kind of background with regards to their belts? You know what I mean? The just be here long enough, you get a belt kind of thing.
oh yeah, I totally disagree with it. I don't even like in jiu-jitsu, for example, you have to spend 2 years on blue belt before purple.
Mm-hmm.
If you got all the skills in the world, why aren't you a purple belt? Like
Mm-hmm.
if you do it, why aren't you it? You know, because I'm certainly not going to give you a purple belt if you are. Like
Yeah.
you could be a blue belt for 12 years. I don't care.
Yeah.
I'm just going to love you because you're a great guy. You've hung around with me 12 years.
Yeah.
You're going to have the
Yeah.
respect of everybody in the dojo.
Yeah.
Everybody in my gym's going to love you. Everyone, you're going to be the great, and I'll do anything for you. But I won't, put that weight on your shoulders of putting a purple belt on you
Yeah.
because it's not going to help you. You're going to probably quit after that.
Yeah.
But I also think that if you can do it, why aren't you wearing it? Like minimum times, like there's the joke in jiu-jitsu is like to get your black belt's really hard, but to get a degree, like I'm a second degree black belt, it just means I've been around for at least 6 years.
Mm-hmm.
What did I do? Well, I've done heaps, but other people haven't. And then maybe I'll do nothing between second and third.
Yeah.
That doesn't matter. That is just a timeline.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
it's not rank per se. It's more like the American Army have the stripes up the sleeve to say how many years service you are.
Yeah.
It's not sergeant stripes though. It's just
Yeah.
stripes up
Yeah.
the sleeve.
Yeah, sure.
That's what the stripes on the black belt represent. They don't
Okay.
represent skill. They just represent how long you've been hanging around.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's go back to you as a blue belt. You've got your blue belt now. You failed the first time,
yeah.
and you've got it. What's the BJJ scene like back then?
Yeah, so in Queensland, I was only ever competing against Brazilians. So So I ran my first hybrid jiu-jitsu tournament in 2003. So that was any grappling arts come together. And we had a few people. I think we had one purple belt. We had a few different people come together and do a couple of blue belts. But I go to all the comps, and the only people I ever seen to go up against were Brazilians.
Yeah, right. And they're here training, running gyms. Is that what they're doing?
Some were teaching, but most of them were just, student exchange or just trying to a lot of surfing on the Gold Coast.
Yeah, okay.
So, and back then, blue belt was a high rank.
Yeah, absolutely.
I was teaching at blue, and just about everybody else around was teaching at blue. And if someone had a purple belt instructor, that was amazing.
Yeah.
The guy, there was a guy called Tiago Neves on the Gold Coast. He was a brown belt, and that was like unfathomable.
Yeah, yeah.
To be a brown belt, and occasionally you hear rumors about black belts. But the thing is too, like, it was hard too. Like when I got my blue belt, I had to defend it. It wasn't like today where it's like it's okay to tap.
Yeah, sure.
If you tap, you should take your belt off. You're dishonored. It was really quite extreme. And I remember, you have to be really close with the people you roll with for that to be accepted. And even then, they hated it.
Yeah.
I remember being destroyed by purple belts. I just remember thinking, I don't even know what it is to be a purple belt.
Yeah.
Because, especially within the rules we were playing, because I was really good outside the rules. And then when we had to, come back inside the rules, we had to put gis on. And so I was really good no gi. And we had to do that. It became really hard.
Yeah.
And I made a decision years ago to stop competing no gi. Now I'm doing it again. But I think up until black belt, I just went in, maybe up till brown belt, I just went in gi comps.
Yep.
Because I was really comfortable in no gi, but I wanted to get better at gi. It's like when I do judo. Every time I went to judo comp, I'd try and win by standing. I wouldn't try and win on the ground unless it was like a national title or a state title or something.
Yeah.
If it was just a tournament, I wanted to win with judo. I didn't want to win with all that other stuff I know.
Yeah.
I wanted to use judo and defeat judo and defend judo with judo.
Yeah.
That was really important to me. Same as jiu-jitsu, I really wanted to understand the gi, so I just forced myself to not rely on the things that I felt comfortable with, and it helped. But I won both nationals and Pan Packs on blue belt.
Okay.
And my instructor, like Daniel's, like that's okay, but your half guard sucks. You can't grade.
Yeah.
I'm like, I beat everybody.
But I
Like,
beat all.
we're
What else
talking
do you want
open
from
weight
me?
too. We're talking open weight. So I won blue belt, Pan Pacs and Nationals open weight.
Yeah.
And no, your half guard sucks. So you
Wow.
be a people belt if you got a suck full half guard. Now you got to remember too, half guard was pretty new.
Yeah.
So like from like Gordo, which means fatso in Portuguese, it was a guy who really developed the half guard.
Yeah.
We remember thinking, oh, this advanced guard's never going to catch on. And I remember thinking De La Riva was just like garbage. Like I was like, who's doing this?
Yeah.
No one's doing De La Riva. Like it's too complicated, too many
Yeah.
moving parts. And like it was just a different way of thinking because it just seemed too fancy. Like, and we were really fighting. So like my jiu-jitsu club's called Fight Club Jiu-Jitsu. That's what, and Daniel was an MMA fighter.
Yeah.
And everything was about fighting, which is why also it wasn't like the average Aussie sort of jiu-jitsu guy who was, putting his gi on, starting to come to that nerdy era.
Yeah.
He was like 1980s style Brazilian fighting.
Yeah.
Marco Ruas, all those sort of guys, when you see some of the footage of the guys, how they train, it was, we used to wear the little, I didn't, but he did. He used to wear the little tiny shorts and we'd come in, no gi top, no nothing, just the shorts, and we'd just wrestle each other and punch each other. And, we'd hit each other even without gloves and stuff, just to sort of see how stuff was going. And, it was very, it was very full on, but it also gave us a lot of confidence.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, I hang around jiu-jitsu comps, like in Queensland, I help with a QBJJC. So Daniel and I own that.
Yeah.
And we run 20 tournaments a year
in
Queensland. So I'm in tournaments all the time. And I look around at tournaments, you look at dudes who are top level competitors and you just know they can't fight the way of a wet paper bag.
Yeah, right.
If they're not pulling guard and trying to win by an advantage, they just can't fight.
Yeah.
And that's definitely not the sport I wanted to do. That's not the art that I wanted to learn.
That's interesting.
I wanted to learn the art that was real.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, and I was doing shoot wrestling, all this other stuff before UFC came out.
Yeah.
And, it came out, but we didn't know about it. One of my students went to his house, he showed me a video. I'm like, wow, this is awesome. This is really cool. How do we do that? But I never fell for the idea of the Gracies sort of creating jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, okay.
Because I already knew through other people from Brazil that they just made it popular.
Yeah.
And even Fight Club's lineage isn't Gracie's.
Yeah.
It actually comes from judo. So we have a judo lineage, and obviously we've affiliated with different Gracie-based instructors. But if you look at our pure lineage, it doesn't come from the Gracie line. And I don't think that matters. I think what matters is, does it work?
Yeah.
And that's the whole philosophy in life is like, does it work? Can I make it work? And how effective is it? And let's sort of rank it. And the karate style called Kyokushin. Kyokushin translates to ultimate truth. And it's one of the best names for a martial arts style, because what is the actual truth? What's the ultimate truth?
Mm-hmm.
What are you doing? And often people do jiu-jitsu, let's say, because they like sport. And my analogy is tennis is a game of sport. Now, stick fighting, you could make tennis like stick fighting. I have an overhand strike, I have underhand, forehand, backhand. I have athletic footwork, good stance, great hand-eye coordination.
Mm-hmm.
I can hit something very well. But if all I'm doing is playing tennis and I forget that it's a stick fight, I'll never be able to win a stick fight. The winning will be by fluke, not by design.
Yeah.
Whereas if I'm a stick fighter and I want to get better at stick fighting and I play tennis, I'm going to get better at stick fighting because I'm going to improve my hand-eye coordination. My strikes are going to get more powerful and I'm going to be able to, have really good movement.
Yeah.
And so when we do jiu-jitsu, we need to make sure that we don't start just playing tennis, that we remember it comes from stick fighting and we use tennis to develop our stick fighting.
I love that. And to your point, a marathon runner doesn't get better by just running marathon after marathon after marathon. It's all about variety. It's all about the things that are similar. It's all about doing the things in the peripherals to make the central better. I love that way of thinking, and it's so true. Scientifically, and it's the way people get better at everything.
Yeah.
Well, Geordie, talk to us. So talk to us about how did you eventually get your purple belt? What else did you have to do?
Oh yeah, so I
You had
took
to learn
four and a
half
half
guard,
years.
obviously.
Yeah, I took 4.5 years to get my purple belt in the end.
Yeah.
I was stubborn,
Yeah.
and I wanted to get my purple belt without having to get good at half guard, and it just failed abysmally. So, so there was a time where I was winning every blue belt comp in that era. So I go on a blue belt comp and I was beating everyone,
Yeah.
and I was like, that's all I need. I just need to keep beating people,
Yeah.
and so it didn't work. And eventually I had to concede and listen to the greater wisdom of my instructor. And and we didn't know. We also didn't know how long it was going to take us to get a black belt. He kept talking about things like 20 years. So
Yeah.
we're just like, man, and then no guarantees and all that sort of stuff. There's no guarantee you'll ever get the black belt. What makes you
Yeah.
think that?
Yeah.
So we were actually like Fight Club went a year with no one grading because
Yeah.
the standard,
Right.
he wasn't happy with the standard. He just wasn't happy. And we survived. We're still here today. We're a really big, strong team.
Yeah.
That's just what was said. And we went, okay.
Yeah.
So after about 4.5 years, I went, I learnt my half guard.
Yeah.
And Daniel's always had us do tests. A lot of people don't like tests. A lot of people like to just get given their belt. And I get that that's nice. But I also think you need to put yourself under pressure.
Yeah.
And competition's pressure. It's not a test. And being able to recall technical knowledge where you're stressed
On
is
command.
one of the most, on command is one of the most important skills that we can develop.
Yeah, absolutely.
Outside of jiu-jitsu, this is important. So we need to be able to test ourselves. We need to put ourselves under pressure and be able to do that.
Yeah.
And if we fail, so be it. I don't care if you're the best dude in the world. If you can't do it when you need it, you fail. Just like I didn't need half guard, but I did.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So, and you could successfully be a black belt in jiu-jitsu without half guard, no doubts, win competitions, do all that, but you're a very incomplete jiu-jitsu player.
Yeah.
You're a very incomplete martial artist. So you need to learn those things. So the testing is important. So I do my purple belt test and I pass and I immediately enroll in the next tournament, expecting
As a
the
purple
success.
belt.
Yeah, expecting the success that I've carried through from blue and got owned in my first match. Absolutely owned. And I'm like, but I've been beating purple belts in class. How is this possible?
Yeah.
But it's possible because, again, that pressure, when it counts is when it counts.
Yeah.
I know so many lions in the gym that are pussycats in competition.
Yeah.
And I know so many lions in competition that when it comes down to it, just break. When it actually matters in real life. They can't do that. And I would rather a lion in real life and a medium-sized cat in competition and a pussy cat in the gym than the other way around.
Sure.
So I went in the comp, didn't win, and then worked on that. And so that was always my thing. Once I get a new belt, now I have to compete.
Yeah.
I want to see where I exist on the field.
Yeah.
And then plus that's sort of over and done with. It's gone, and just move forwards.
And at this time, are you doing other martial arts as well, or is so you're still doing the whole suite of everything?
Yeah. So I was probably doing. So I started judo in 2004.
Okay.
I was training everything I could find. So if someone had a daytime class on, I'd be there trying to train with them.
Yeah. Right.
I was just trying to, upload as much information as I could.
And are you making money from full-time instructing now?
Now, yeah. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. So it took some time, took a lot of effort, took a lot of loans and help from my parents and different things like that. It certainly wasn't a solo journey. It was something that did take some time.
Okay. So you're a purple belt. Talk to us about the next step. You're inching towards the brown. What's the instructor at this stage when you're a purple belt?
What was Daniel then? I'm not sure. It might have been like second degree black or something then. Or...
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So.
All right. And then your journey to your brown?
He's fourth degree now. So I'd have to do some math.
Yeah. Sure. So your journey to your brown belt then?
Yeah. So journey to brown belt. Just keep training, keep competing.
Okay.
probably
And
competing less. Like we were having a few purple brown belt competitions in Queensland at the time, and I'd always jump in those.
mhm,
Uh, didn't win any of them, but it was good to do.
yeah,
And yeah, so I don't think there was much. I think it was just a matter of like discipline is 90% consistency.
mm,
So or habit. So if you can just turn up, like I always used to ask myself, can I walk in the door? Can I walk in the door of the dojo? And if I could, then I'd go.
yeah,
If there's a reason I couldn't walk in, I wouldn't go. And it was just like, okay, it's you know 7 a.m. in the morning. I've got to go to class. I've got to drive an hour to the Gold Coast to train. I get there, then we do that. So it was
yeah,
just like that was Tuesday. So that was my Tuesday, and that's been my Tuesday. I don't know, geez, 17 years or something now.
yeah,
16, 17 years, and that's just what I do.
yeah.
You just schedule it in, and there it is, and
No,
then
that's just it.
yeah, and then just when you're there, so it's like the idea that practice doesn't make perfect, but if you focus on your practice, if you try to improve,
Mhm.
you can be perfect. So practice makes permanent. So
Hmm.
if you just turn up and train, and all you do is the same thing, you're not going to get better. You're just going to maintain your level. So if you want to get better, you have to, there's all these different things like purposeful practice makes improved, like all this sort of other stuff you could say. But
Love
the idea
alliteration.
is, yeah, you just try and get better. You
Yeah,
just go, okay, if I'm going to do a push up today, I'm just going to go lower than I did yesterday and higher than all the way down, all the way up. And if I'm doing a full movement, I'm going to do more movements.
yeah,
And then you just keep adding to that, and then you just work out, well, what can't I do? Oh, now I've got a sore shoulder. Okay, can I do one hand push-ups? Can I get a dumbbell? What can I do? How
yeah,
can I tell all my competitors that no one ever achieves success with an excuse, only a solution.
yeah,
So what's your solution? What is your solutions? Oh, it's raining, I didn't run. Well, number one, that's not a good excuse. You should run on the rain, because I bet your opponent's not. So if
yeah.
you do it, you've
They're
already
doing it.
earned yourself a point above. I love the idea of embracing the suck. I
Mhm,
love running in the rain. I love running in mud. I love making it harder,
mhm,
because if you make it harder, the other guy doesn't want to make it harder. He just wants to make his life easier, and that's
mhm,
what makes you stronger.
mhm.
But I couldn't run because my shoes fell apart. I didn't want to get blisters. Okay, did you skip? Oh no, I didn't
Yeah,
skip. I just watched TV. Well, that's an excuse.
yeah,
What's your solution? So whenever we try and always look for the solution, what is
yeah.
the way to get the most out of that?
Okay. And then the crescendo, so to speak, from a BJJ perspective, Geordie, when you talk to us about getting your black belt. Did you know you were getting it? Was it a surprise? Was it a big build up? Was it fairly
Yeah, so
casual?
it was a surprise. So I was Daniel's first black belt that he's given.
Okay.
I was one of his first students, and was lucky to be his first black belt.
Yep.
And they didn't give one for like 2 years, which really surprised me, because there was a couple of really good guys that were like on brown belt, like that I thought would probably be, a breath after I got mine, or
Yeah.
maybe a week, maybe a
Yep.
month. But yeah,
Yep.
it was a little bit later. So I was really flattered about that.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I didn't expect it. I was a third degree brown belt, so I thought, I probably got to do my
Got a bit
fourth
of
degree.
time to go. Yep.
Yeah, and so I just was just announced one day,
Wow.
and yeah, it was pretty cool, pretty surreal.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, it was pretty nice.
And how did it? I mean, how did it feel? I mean, and how did BJJ feel sort of afterwards? And the reason why this is interesting to me is because this is by far not your first black belt. You know what I
No,
mean? But was there's something different about this?
well, it's the only black belt I haven't had to test for. So we had to test for
Okay.
every belt, even in jiu-jitsu. We didn't get given anything, and every other
Yeah.
martial arts style I've ever done, I've had to test for.
Yeah.
So it's the first time I was given a belt. So the feeling is different than when you get given something to when you, I guess, earn something, because you
Yeah.
can
Okay.
finish it grading, and you can pretty much know how you went.
Yeah.
Oh, am I going to get it? Am I not going to? I've nailed this. I'm gonna pass. So yeah, so it just sort of just comes out of the blue, and it's like a nice surprise award, I guess, when you're attending a function and someone wants to give you an award,
Hmm.
and you didn't even know you're up for the award. It's quite nice,
Yeah. Yeah. It's a great
like
surprise.
yeah, it's a great surprise. Um, like my black belt in jiu-jitsu is up there because of what it represents to people.
Yeah.
so to a lot of people, it represents, this big, amazing thing.
Yeah.
And but I probably didn't feel that. I
Okay.
just I appreciated it,
Yep.
and I also thought that, that's going to be a lot better for my school, for education and teaching, and
Sure.
it's good for my students. It's good for me to be able to compete against black belts. I
Yep.
want to sort of really see where I am. My opinion on competition is the only belt that matters is black. So if you're
Okay.
an Australian blue belt champion, I was Australian blue belt, Pan Pacific blue belt champion, but I got owned by purple belts when I went up.
Yeah.
My first comp, I got owned. And even though I was beating guys in my club, I wasn't fighting other guys with their game. Evolved to that. In fact, when I did my first black belt competition was at Pan Pacs, and the guy had been a black belt as long as I've been training. So like he'd been black belt, so he could have been my instructor from white belt up.
Yeah.
But that's how long he'd been a black belt. So here I am, a brand new black
Yeah.
belt. And this is the guy I'm going. He's got stripes like his black belt. And but that's where it matters, because if you want to be the best in the world, or best in Australia, or best in Queensland, or wherever, and you're winning the white belt division, you're not the best. You're just the best in your subcategory of subcategory of subcategory.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm the best 67 kilo white belt, master 3, gi, champion today.
Yeah.
That's not really the same. Like I'm involved in the sport of wrestling, and there's like 8 world champions a year, full stop.
Yeah.
That's it. So if you're a world champion, I've been at events where guys have gone, "Oh, do you know who that is? He won the 1985 world championship." Like people know who people are for decades.
Yeah. Yeah.
And whereas you got to be like a 12-time world champion now in jiu-jitsu for people want to know your name.
Yeah.
And even then, how like of what were you the world champion?
Yeah.
I did the math one day, and I think there's like in one sanction, there's I think about 2,000 world champions just within one sanction. If you add up all the different belts, all the different weight classes, all the different gi, no gi, male, female, masters up all the way through, then
Yeah.
put the kids divisions in, all that sort of stuff. It just becomes outlandish, because then you go, okay, well, it's IBJJF, then SJJF's there, and then Abu Dhabi Pro's there, and
It's like what boxing became, right?
yeah, exactly. Except even more divisions.
Yeah. Yeah. It's more than what boxing. I think boxing's like 8 or something like that. And then this is just so much more.
So that's the shame of it. But again, it's that participation award thing, right? Everyone wants to get their participation ribbon.
Yeah.
So you get so many pictures on social media of guys standing there with no one next to them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Medal, and I get if you're in a sport. So let's say you're in boxing. So if you're in amateur boxing and you're on your way to the Olympics,
Mm-hmm.
and you rock up and no one else is there for the Queensland titles, well, you won.
Yeah.
You won, because there are other guys there, but they knew you were coming and didn't even want to embarrass themselves.
Mm-hmm.
That's not happening in jiu-jitsu. There's not dudes at home going, "Oh, I heard Rich is going to be there. Is he Master 3? Yeah, I'm not going on that. No, I'm not coming today."
Yeah.
Like that's not how it's happening.
Yeah.
Especially in jiu-jitsu too. You can just change your division usually, unless you're like up the top end. And then I feel for black belts and brown belts and stuff who don't get matches. I feel for them, and sometimes those guys put their stuff up there to taunt people, to say you weren't here, so I got this.
Yeah.
And
Sure.
I get that too. I get that, because that's. But if you're the Master 7 white belt, I don't know, Brisbane Open champion, don't put that picture up.
Yeah.
Master 7. I acknowledge that you're old and you turned up and you wanted to do it. I get that. That's awesome. But please don't tell me there was a Master 6 division or another Master 7 division, one weight class below you, because really you shouldn't be putting that picture up there.
Yeah.
So, so I understand it, but I also think there's a lot of people who really take advantage of that idea that they're the only one there.
Yeah. No, look, it's a great story. Your belts. I love the fact that you failed your blue belt test. And it's almost and your story described, the closer you get to black belt, it's almost like the less you want, not the less you wanted it, but the less it was important what the color of the belt was. You almost became, jiu-jitsu was just a part of you now. You know what I mean? And you got your black belt. You said, hey, this was nice. I'm really surprised. This is great. This is cool, but doesn't really change anything. Gives me a bit of credibility, helps me, get students. But that's a really it's a really interesting insight.
Yeah. Because I also knew when I put that on, I have to defend that thing too.
Oh, the weight of it, right?
Yeah, 100%. Like,
Yeah.
And then I'd always then try and roll with people. Like, if I went to Thailand, there's a jiu-jitsu club there, I'd just jump in, and it's the same sort of thing. Like, when we're on the army base and we're rolling, everyone knows I'm a jiu-jitsu black belt. Everyone wants to kick my butt. Like everyone is just like, I want to kick your butt. I'm 23. Yeah. I'm super fit.
Yeah.
I've done this, I've done that. Now I'm going to try and, but if you shy away from it, you don't get better. You just got to protect yourself from injury. We just got to protect ourselves. So if I think you're crazy, I'm probably not going to do it. Like if I just see you like hurting other people, I'm like, well, I might not be the one to teach you the lesson today. I want to get this guy over. He can teach you a lesson.
Yeah.
But I'm not afraid of tapping. I definitely do a lot of tapping.
Yeah.
And, that's definitely part of it. In fact, I think I love the quotes, like 1,000 taps to blue belt. Until you tapped 1,000 times, you don't get your blue belt. Because if you're just doing what you're good at, you're not actually doing anything else.
Yeah.
So you have to put yourself in bad places.
Got to learn that. Got to learn that half guard, man. Got to learn that.
Yeah, that's right. Like when I was a brown belt, I decided I was just going to start every match on the bottom of side control. So I was just going to start every match, lie on the bottom of side control, and that's what I was going to do. And that's where I was going to start fighting from. And then towards the end, I was fighting from underneath mount. And I tried for like a month of always getting people to start on my back, but really didn't enjoy that process.
So the thought process behind that was, I'm going to start at a disadvantage to accelerate my learning. Yeah,
and make it so that nowhere is dangerous.
Right.
So, like after I got my black belt, I also decided I was going to do a year of no guard. So every time I rolled, guard was outlawed, it was banned.
Wow.
So just to see if I could not play guard, because I got do a lot of wrestling and stuff as well. I was wondering if it was possible to do jiu-jitsu without guard, and just if you're on top of me in side control, why compromise me staying on my back? Why don't I try and get out of that? So why pull half guard? Why not turtle? Why not pull you over me? Why not stand up? Why not move away?
Yeah.
Why not make you have to compromise where you are?
Yeah.
So, and that's entirely possible. Like probably about 3 months in, I found that it wasn't even hard not to play guard, but I gave myself a 12-month. I wanted to see where it was at the end of 12 months.
Yeah.
I wanted to see where the journey took me. And it's helped a lot, because a lot of people, like, you can hold side control by just knowing that 90% of all people will do a hip escape and try and pull half guard.
Mm-hmm.
So by knowing that, you just don't let them do that.
Yeah.
And then you beat 90% of all people. And then it's that same sort of thing as like, which side do you pass? Oh, you always pass to the right. Cool. I'm just going to make it impossible for you to pass to the right.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're going to suck at passing to the left, because you always pass to the right.
Mm-hmm.
And if everyone passes everyone to the right, I'm going to get good at passing everyone to the left, because then the people I'm fighting are used to always defending the knee slice pass this way, but they're not used to defending it that way.
Yeah.
So there might be black belt level defense to the right, but they're only purple belt level defense to the left. So that increases my odds.
Yeah.
So start sort of playing with that sort of mindset as well.
I mean, it's an absolute mindset. And it really sort of personifies, in my opinion, jiu-jitsu, where it's not easy. It's hard to get good at. And what you're describing is, okay, well, not only is jiu-jitsu hard to get good at, but I'm finding the holes that I'm not good at and making myself good at that as well, which is making climbing Everest even harder by the sounds of it. Yeah, but you need to challenge yourself. Because, yeah, absolutely. Like in judo, you have a thing called decoy waza. Decoy waza is your favorite techniques. Okay. And so I have my favorite techniques. Like I have some places which the percentage of the population that can defeat me when I get to that position is very low. Mm-hmm. It still exists, but we've now decreased it even further. So, like even good level black belts, if I get there, I'll lift myself up to that elite level for that moment. Then I lose there and I'm back to average Joe black belt. Yeah. Yeah. And sometimes in other places, and like I'm the guys, is he really a black belt? What did he put that belt on for? He can't do that, because there's some things I can't do. There's some things I just physically haven't put the time into doing. And,
don't watch me invert. It's going to be a very ugly, bad day for everyone. I'm probably going to tap because I've already compressed my spine too much and I'm already out. My body
Yeah.
doesn't like bending that way.
Yeah. Okay.
So I don't really do that. So, if we're doing a seminar, you're going to have blue belts and purple belts, and probably even white belts these days, just doing all these really cool things. And, I'm over here looking like I've never even put a gi on before because I just can't do it because that's just not my game. But, you move more towards my direction, then I'm probably going to be the other end.
Yeah.
So, it's all like my goal between second degree and third degree is to make someone tap from anywhere. I don't care where you are. I want to make you tap. I want to tap you out if you're in knee ride, back mount, wherever you are. I want to be dangerous to you.
Yeah.
And so my idea is, be dangerous everywhere.
Yeah.
And a good friend of mine, you also know really well, is Paul Cale.
Yeah.
And I was talking to him about this, and his philosophy is to make you pay, take something with you and make you pay from wherever he is. Which is a very similar philosophy, but a different way of getting there.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I like that sort of thinking. I like the idea of being wherever I am. I don't want you to feel secure. I don't want you to feel safe. And not even just, I think I've got side control. I want you to worry wherever my hands are going, my legs are going, what I'm doing. That you
always
might
thinking. Always thinking about it.
And to me, jiu-jitsu is not like chess. It's like checkers.
That's interesting because everyone says it's like chess.
Yeah, I think that's because they like to intellectualize.
Okay.
Jiu-jitsu is like chess. Whereas I know some guys that are very good at chess, and I can say, how's that going? And they can tell me, in 10 moves, checkmate.
Yeah.
I don't know anyone who can tell me, I'm going to do a sweep. From here, I'm going to transition. I'm going to go across. I'm going to go to knee right. He's going to probably put his left hand on my hip. From there, I'm going to transition to the other side. And I'm going to take his arm. He'll defend his arm by rolling to the left, and I'm going to take. I don't know anyone does that. They're not 13 moves ahead.
You're so right. Because they may think like that, but it lasts like the first step, and then that plan's gone. Right.
Whereas checkers is a game of strategy as well. Checkers is there is definitely strategy in checkers. And in checkers, if I put something out and you don't take it, you lose your piece. And that's very much like jiu-jitsu. If I post and you don't take my post, I stand up, I move to your back, I do something. So if I put something there and you don't take it, you lose it. You lose your right to defend that because I will continue on.
Yeah.
And the same thing is when I get from one end of the board in the game of checkers, I turn my piece over and then I come back. And to me, I'm playing checkers from my back. But when I get to the other end of the board, now I'm on top and now I'm attacking you and I'm attacking you from behind.
Yeah.
So I kind of like that analogy a lot more.
Yeah, big time.
And I also think when we get to the fight, the actual fight, it really is in the moment and it really is fast and it's not 13 moves ahead. I can't really anticipate too much beyond what's happening right now. And that to me is much more like checkers.
Yeah. No, that's really profound. And how does that translate into, let's say you're coaching someone for an MMA fight or a competition and they have to go in with a game plan, right?
Yep.
How does that affect, that metaphor sort of affect going in with a game plan? Is there a plan or is it just planned to be flexible kind of thing?
Well, no, we generally, depending on what level you're fighting at.
Okay.
So if you've had under 10 fights, just do the things we do.
Okay.
Don't, I'll teach you like, we'll drill, say, rear naked choke escape like crazy because that's one of the highest percentage submissions. We're going to, drill armbar escapes. We're going to drill those high percentage things, guillotine escapes, defending a double leg.
Yeah.
Getting your back off a cage. We're going to work really, really hard and long hours and long reps on that. You see, the problem with jiu-jitsu and grappling arts isn't that they're so complicated. It's that they take so long to do one rep.
Yeah.
So if I want to teach you to do Thai boxing and I'm going to teach you a leg kick, we can finish today with 1,000 leg kicks. And that's not going to seem that hard for me to put into a lesson. But if we want to do 1,000 arm bars, we're talking a month.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's not like there's so many more techniques in jiu-jitsu. In fact, there's not that many techniques in jiu-jitsu. People say, oh, jiu-jitsu is infinite. It's like, okay, how many submissions you got from closed guard? Let's count them. Because I'm telling you now, you don't have this infinite amount of submissions from closed guard.
You will hit an end to your knowledge.
You will hit an end. How many ways can you sweep someone from half guard? We're going to hit an end. Mm-hmm. And if you're one of the real super new school guys, oh, you moved your foot. It's not half guard anymore. Now it's, some other guard.
Yeah.
We've really got to give that a name.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, so there is a finite amount to it. Now there's creativity in that, just like there's creativity in striking sports.
Mm.
You can see great creativity with people, when they combine footwork and even some unorthodox movements. But there is a finite amount to it. So when you compete in MMA, there's a finite amount of what you're probably going to get exposed to.
Yeah.
You could be surprised. We could be surprised by someone, but if we have a basic idea of where they're at, if I know you're from a sport jiu-jitsu gym, I'm not as threatened if I know you're from a fighting jiu-jitsu gym.
Mm-hmm.
Because now I'm like, well, these guys are already going to probably have half of that stuff covered, whereas this other guy might still have some bad sport habits that are going to leave him open. So we can sort of work for that. What's their striking like? So if you get a really good gym, like you used to train at Integrated, really good MMA gym. If you're fighting a guy from Integrated, he's going to be pretty sound on his grappling skills with strikes.
Mm-hmm.
He's not going to be doing weird things that you
Yeah.
might see at another gym because they're already focused on that. So, you got to treat that gym in a different way. So it's like, what are they going to do? Well, I can kind of predict what that gym's going to do based on what they are. So we have to focus on those high percentage MMA things that will happen rather than random stuff this other gym might pull out of the bag because they don't know better, but it might still work. So we got to be...
Okay. No, that absolutely makes sense. It's focusing on the problem at hand, I suppose, is a way to put it. When you have that opponent there, it's coming up with a strategy for that. But I'm still blown away by the checkers chess analogy because you hear it all the time. Jiu-jitsu is chess. Jiu-jitsu. I'm pretty sure I could find an image of chess pieces dressed in gis.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I'm not sure if you'll find checkers pieces.
Yeah, because people love it. Like it sounds intellectual. It's like it's the whole analogy like. If you get your black belt in jiu-jitsu, you should be called professor because that's about how long a university would take you to get there.
Yeah.
Let's think about that.
Yeah.
If we're discounting every year of school before university, let's just say
that's a great
those
point.
12 years before don't matter. So now we're at uni. Okay. How often are you doing jiu-jitsu? How often do you have to study to get to the degree, like professors beyond PhD?
Mm-hmm.
Like, we're talking a doctor who's now employed as a lecturer.
Yeah.
And has probably, got quite a few published pieces now. He's probably, realistically got his doctorate a couple of times over now.
Yeah.
And the hours that he has spent on that, even just that PhD thesis that he's written probably doesn't even equal jiu-jitsu black.
Yeah, sure.
So, but people love that.
It's like a myth that they
cool.
it's a myth, a BJJ myth they love to just hang their hat on and push it through. Yeah.
It sounds cool, like, oh yeah, it's pretty much the same. Why shouldn't we get paid the same amount as a surgeon?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, we could argue the other way too there, like.
Yeah.
But sure, whatever makes people happy,
Yeah, and that's the beauty of it. It takes all sorts and all sorts of opinions make this community the thing it is.
Well, and that's exactly right. Like my club, we don't pull guard. That's just a rule. You don't pull guard in my club.
Mm-hmm.
If you pull guard, there's so many clubs out there you can just go train with and do it. Love it.
Yeah.
But that's my philosophy. And if you don't like my philosophy, don't train with me.
Yeah.
Like I'm cool with that. Like, if you don't like what I expect of you, don't train with me because there's so many options in the world. But let's not have hard feelings. Let's talk to each other about this and say, hey, look,
absolutely.
That's not my focus. This is my focus, and this is where I'm trying to head. And if you don't want to head where I'm trying to head, please let's talk about it like adults. And then when I see you at jiu-jitsu comps and stuff, and you're up there getting your gold medals, man, I'm glad I was part of your journey.
Yeah.
But to me, I believe you have to align with my beliefs. I have a very strong moral code I expect my guys to live up to. Because I'm teaching you to be able to potentially cause huge damage to people. I also want to know that you're a good person. Mm-hmm. Because, if you don't understand, what justice and rectitude and all those sorts of things are, and when to be right, and, when to stand up for what's right and when not to, I'm not teaching tennis. I'm teaching stick fighting where you can play tennis. But there's plenty of tennis clubs out there, and they might not necessarily have to teach you their morals and all that sort of stuff. And, okay. But
Well,
for me, I have to.
let's talk about your school. So Black Dragon Kai, you started this, you founded it in 1993.
Yep.
It must feel like a lifetime ago now
Yeah.
when it started. How would you describe it? Because there's so many disciplines all in the one sort of center.
Yeah. So I have one martial art, which I teach.
Okay.
And that's evolved into my own system.
Okay. And how would you describe that system? Is it like a hybrid of everything?
Yeah.
All the pragmatism we've spoken about, you're gathering this and gathering that and putting it all together?
Yeah. So and then I have combat sports that sit around it, and I
Okay.
use the information I get from combat sports as well as real world information. So I bounced for I think 12 years, 12, 13 years.
Yep.
So, I got to do that. I've had my fair share of real life situations as well. And I've got a lot of other people who train with me and other people I train with that. I go to the army, we talk about stuff there, what
Yep.
works, what doesn't, how that, plays in. And that gives you a bit of an idea on that sort of side of things. So essentially my art has sort of three aspects to it.
Mm-hmm.
It has to work in self-defense. That's number one rule. It has to actually work.
Yeah.
So I don't care if it worked 400 years ago, jumping, side kicking, knocking people off horses, whatever you think that is, that's cool.
Yeah.
But I needed to work now, and I needed to be able to be adaptable. If the world shifts and changes, it needs to be adaptable to that shift and change.
Mm-hmm.
So if people start attacking everyone with knives, I need to be able to adapt and shift to that immediately. It's not like something which I have to then find and learn and understand. It needs to be ready now. And then just if you imagine that, then knife defense doesn't become a postgraduate understanding. It becomes an essential core subject.
Yeah.
You
One
must
of the foundations. Yeah.
Foundation subject. So there's the self-defense and there's the combat sports aspect. I have to make sure it does actually work against resisting people.
Yeah. Okay.
And but not one art, because one art leaves you too many holes.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you're a grappler with me, you should be able to win a judo match, a wrestling match, a jiu-jitsu gi, jiu-jitsu no gi. Want to go on sambo, you should be able to do it. Like if that's all you do, you still should be able to win that completely, and not just do well, but I believe in actual win, because the knowledge should fit. And then the other part is it needs to be something you can do for life. So it needs to be, in the Japanese way or Chinese way of do or tao. It's a way. It's a path. So that character or kanji represents road or path.
Yeah.
So it's not just now. It continues on. It continues on, and I keep moving forwards down that path. And I need to find those elements that I enjoy, and those those other things that are interesting, but maybe not necessarily right now, but still real and still relevant. That maybe as you go down that path. So that's kind of my art, and then I have all those combat sports that surround it. And in the art we do, there's a jiu-jitsu, wrestling sort of element, there's a striking element, but it doesn't look like MMA because we're also doing weapons, we're doing multiple opponents. There's a bit of tradition in it because I think tradition and culture are really important to have. But yeah, it's everything, all the different styles of it I've learned. It's got elements from them, and that's kind of really important to me because that's also my legacy.
Yeah, big time.
Well, what's interesting is like someone says, "Oh, is there such a thing as the perfect martial arts style?" And the answer everyone's meant to say is no. It's up to the person. That's what you're meant to say, because we used to say, "Oh, my style's the best," but then we got everyone's like, "Oh, you can't say that anymore. You have to say this." But honestly, my style's the best, and I'll tell you why. Because it's mine, and I can change anything in it. And if I don't change anything to what I believe is best, I'm doing a disservice to myself and all my students.
Yeah.
So from my perspective, my style is the best.
Yeah.
I will change it and modify it to make it better at any time. I have complete autonomy and control over that. So I can do that. But is it the best for you, Rich? I don't know.
Yeah, right. Okay.
I don't know if it's the best for you. But I'm going to do my best to give you my best.
Yeah. And talk to me, Geordie, about, now taking that mindset and doing the work that you've been doing with the Army and the Army Combatives program, has this been just much the same, or is this a different gear because of the stuff that you're teaching? What's that like transitioning into that now as well?
So yeah, everything that I have in my martial arts system, I teach there, but
Okay.
I don't teach everything I have.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
so it's part of what we do, but it's also not everything. And
Mm-hmm.
there's a different objective. Like, if you imagine, it's really hard to teach stuff like, I have the knife, you grab my wrist, I disarm you, I stab you in the throat. And it's like, cool, that's really good technique. That works really good.
Yeah.
Yep. Did the other guy have a knife? Oh, not in my scenario, but he tried to grab my wrist and my objective was to stab him in the throat.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
That's what we teach in the Army, right? Like, I'm
Yeah.
coming in, I've got the knife, you're trying to stop me, I'm going to come through.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
if I teach that in my civilian class, that's not good, because I'm now teaching people how to kill people. So I can't teach that.
Yeah.
So I have to teach it in a different context. So
Okay.
my context of the information changes. The information is the same. It's the same as if my hands are up, you grab my hand, I bring my elbow over the top, and then I hit you, or palm hit, maybe hammer fist you in the neck.
Mm-hmm.
There was nothing in my hand. Or you've got a knife and I've got a knife. Or maybe I've got a screwdriver or a pen and you've got a knife. And then I can do that same technique and I can do it fairly safely and it's going to work really well. So I have to change the context in which I'm teaching it. The technique is still sound and everything else. And it's important to teach everything with context, because when you lose the context of why you're doing something, it can be done at the inappropriate time.
Mm-hmm.
And it can also be missed when it was appropriate to do it because you missed when you should do it. And I think that's a real big danger that we have across everything we do. We miss the point of context. It's now relevant now because we only have so many options. And when we miss this half of the options, the outcome isn't going to be as good. We have to be able to see all our options and understand all our options so that then we can immediately decide on the one we need. So there used to be a thing called Hicks' Law. Hicks' Law was the more options you have, the slower it was to decide. But that's been disproven multiple times. Because if you look at an elite level boxer, he has every punch under the sun and he can still pull them out and use them in a split second. In fact, faster than you and I can do them, even if we only knew one punch. Because it was a good idea, but it sounded like a good theory, but it actually didn't hold up. So the idea of more options doesn't necessarily diminish as long as you understand your options.
Mm-hmm.
You don't understand your options, you lose that. And like prudence is the idea of weighing up the greater good or the lesser evil, and having wisdom. And it was the Greeks believed it was the gateway to all virtue and all that sort of stuff. But it is understanding what prudence is, and when we do situations. So if we're in a situation, I have to understand what is the best outcome. It might not mean I'm going to 100% succeed, but it means that my success is the best success I can get in that situation here.
Mm-hmm.
But it's kind of like a timeline. It's diminishing. The longer I take more indecision, the less chance I have of that. And if I don't teach someone the context of what I'm doing, they're never going to be able to get to that point of decision, and they're never going to choose wisely. And we want to create wisdom in our students so that they can do those best options when they need them. And there's a lot of people in the world that think that they'll never be in a situation of violence. And it's surprising, but it's true. There's people out there who think that they can walk their life without ever having to worry about anything bad ever happening to them or anyone around them.
Mm-hmm.
It's a small percentage, but there's still percent. And I meet them all the time. I've got fellow jiu-jitsu black belt friends who think this. I don't need jiu-jitsu for self-defense because I'm not going to be in a situation where I need it. But my experience has been sometimes, like, I haven't needed to use self-defense for a long time. But sometimes the situation finds you.
That's right. It doesn't mean it's never going to happen again.
That's right. And I'd rather be ready than not. Like, I feel confident 99% of people on walk the face of the earth I could probably defend myself against. And I could stop now and still have that. But the 1% worry me. It's and I don't want to be in a situation where I can't. And I also want to make sure that I do step up when there's time to step up. And one of the ways I can do it is when I train, in my mind, I put things in the context of scenarios and situations and make sure I will stand up when it matters.
Yeah, look, that's it's one of the things I've definitely taken away from this conversation with you. We've had many, but from this one, this idea of just what is the context that you are within when you're learning and when you're teaching, because it's the opposite of what the white belt wants to do, right? It's like, no, Geordie, no, show me the omoplata. I don't care about how to get there. Just show me it. That's the cool part.
Yeah, that's right.
But the important part is the context, about why you're doing it. How did you get in this position in the first place? And, discount context at your own peril. I think that's such a, you can transcend that lesson to anything, you know what I mean? Not just martial arts. It's a great way of looking at life.
100%.
Awesome, Geordie. Well, hey, look, I think I've taken enough of your time, mate. Geordie, thank you so much for being on the show, and thank you so much for sharing your story with us. Some of the things I will not forget is a young Geordie beating a towel with a book and a stool and the fact that the towel and the book vanished. That is amazing. But no, it's been absolutely fascinating to learn about you, a true martial artist who has just taken on so many forms. And what I love about your story is, your dedication is not to one, your dedication is not to other, your dedication is to the context of all of it. And it's the human form, it's the human movement, it's this warrior kind of embodiment that you bring with it. And, I asked you about what's it like teaching the army, and you're like, well, it's just like teaching normal kids, except it's a different context. You know what I mean? It doesn't really change too many things. So it has been an amazing story. And listeners, I really hope you have enjoyed this episode of Behind the Black Belt with Geordie Lavers-Mcbain. If you want to check out all stuff about Geordie, if you want to check out Black Dragon Kai, they've got training happening in so many different locations. You can find all the information that you need at www.blackdragonkai.com.au. That's blackdragonkai.com.au. You can also find them on Facebook at Black Dragon Kai. And then there's a whole myriad of Black Dragon Kai, wrestling, Black Dragon Kai, BJJ. There's so many Black Dragon Kai offshoots from there. So, get on and educate yourself and check out what Geordie and the team are doing. So again, Geordie, mate, thank you so much for being on the show. It's been an absolute pleasure. Any final words before we sign off?
No, thanks so much, Richard. I'm sorry I didn't talk more about jiu-jitsu.
No, and that's the beauty of it. It's the one thing that all these black belts have in common is a jiu-jitsu black belt, but that's the only thing they have in common. You know what I mean? It's people just come from such an amazing background, and you are certainly one of those people. But no, thank you again, Geordie. And ladies and gents, that's it. Until next time, this is Rich signing off for Behind the Black Belt.
Behind the Black Belt is proud to support veteran grappling. Veteran grappling is using the grappling arts to improve the lives of military veterans and first responders. Visit www.veterangrappling.com to learn about scholarship opportunities and more.
Join our community on Facebook and our website at www.behindtheblackbelt.com. Behind the Black Belt is a TDP Studios production. Behind the Black Belt is copyright of Richard Thapthing Thong and TDP Studios. The music used in this episode is Rocking Forward by X Take Rux and is used under an Attribution International 4.0 license.